the 1970s, attention grew toward human and civil rights as well as the women's movement. For example, the Rehabilitation Act forbade discrimination in jobs, housing, and education for people with disabilities. The Education Amendment Act outlawed sexual discrimination in higher education. The Voting Rights Act of 1975 required states and communities with large numbers of non-English speakers to print voting materials in various foreign languages. During the 70s, divorce rates increased almost as rapidly as unemployment increased, and many people moved to the Sunbelt states in the West and the South. Many people renewed the clothing from the 60s due to the unemployment. Hand-decorated jeans, unisex t-shirts and jeans, and the shag haircut became ways of saving money. Many new fashions also were created, such as leg warmers, string bikinis, pantsuits for women, fur coats, cowl-neck sweaters, platform boots and sandals, sundresses, bell-bottom pants, muscle shirts, and leisure suits. The way people dressed seemed to represent what type of genre of music they listened to. Even though rock and roll was beginning to lose popularity due to the split of the Beatles and the death of Elvis Presley, rock filtered itself into other genres such as punk rock, hard rock, country rock, pop rock, and the dance of the decade, the disco. Many popular artists included Aerosmith, the Bee Gees, David Bowie, Fleetwood Mac, Elton John, Led Zeppelin, and Bruce Springsteen. Music wasn't the only thing that flourished in the 70s. Movies made a big comeback with well-known movies such as Grease, Saturday Night Fever, Star Wars, Jaws, Rocky, and The Exorcist. Not only did the culture have a lot of excitement, but so did the politics. The silent majority, or middle-class voters, was a good contribution to President Nixon's election. Nixon promised to restore law and order and cut back Democratic programs and civil rights legislation. A result of this was the delaying of desegregation in Southern schools. The cutbacks were part of the Republicans' Southern strategy, which was a plan to win conservative Southern white voters away from the Democratic Party. At the time, Nixon seemed like a very trustworthy president, but as time went on, this trust decreased. Nixon created an enemies list, which was made up of critics that disliked his policies and planned to ruin their reputations. On June 17, 1972, 5 men were arrested for breaking into the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate complex in Washington, D.C., which later became known as the Watergate scandal. Investigators found that there was a connection between the burglars and Nixon's re-election campaign. Nixon's involvement was discovered when the investigators found White House recordings that discussed the break-in and the cover-up. Nixon then became the first president to resign from office, and Gerald Ford was sworn in. Ford was not very popular due to the pardon he gave Nixon for the whole scandal. Carter was then elected as president in 1976. Some of the political mishaps led to downfalls in the economy. Government spending increased due to the Vietnam War, and the United States went through a recession. Stagflation was a result of increased unemployment and inflation. During the 70s, the number of people on welfare increased to 9.7 million. Nixon tried to stimulate the economy by freezing wages, prices, and rent to decrease inflation. It seemed to work for a while, but inflation grew once again. Another major cause of inflation was the rise in the cost of oil. The high price of oil caused an energy crisis across the United States. During the winter, the cost of gasoline, heating oil, and electricity soared, which made it difficult for places to stay warm. Nixon authorized a bill to construct a pipeline that would bring oil from Alaska. Along with the energy crisis, environmental movements increased. From this came the formation of Earth Day. Throughout the 70s, people faced many hardships, but in the end, it was a learning experience for the United States and its future.